Beneath the surface of a seemingly carefree young woman named Lois Heather Mack, who joyfully dances with friends, lay a darkness few could imagine. Her playful expressions, captured on film, masked a twisted and cruel nature, capable of harming the one who had given her everything. Sheila von Wiese, born on June 10, 1952 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, enjoyed a happy and carefree childhood. The daughter of Neil and Lois von Wiese, alongside her siblings William, known as Bill, and Deborah, or Debbie, Sheila excelled academically. She later studied political science at Boston University, earned a master's degree from the University of Washington, and worked at a prestigious publishing house. Her professional and social life flourished, bringing her into contact with prominent figures, including Ted Kennedy. During a political campaign in the 80s, she formed a lasting friendship with Elliot Jacobson. Yet Sheila yearned for marriage, a child, and a family. That dream seemed within reach when she met James Mack, a renowned conductor, composer, producer, and arranger with over 60 albums to his name, who also chaired the music department at Harold Washington Community College in Chicago. James had children from a previous relationship. Sheila fell deeply in love, and they married, settling in the affluent Kenwood neighborhood. Then, when it seemed her deepest desire might never be fulfilled, Sheila conceived a child with her husband. At the age of 43, in October of 1995, she gave birth to Lois Heather Mack. Little Heather, as she was affectionately called, was showered with love and received a privileged upbringing. Some close to the family felt Sheila indulged her daughter excessively. In 2001, the family embarked on a Mediterranean cruise, trusting in the cruise line's reputation. During the voyage, James suffered a leg injury, and regrettably, the ship's doctor did not provide adequate care. This negligence led to partial paralysis, prompting him to sue the cruise company, a case that dragged on for years. 3 years later, police were called to the family home following allegations that James's children from a previous relationship were being denied access to their father. They accused Sheila of preventing visits, allegedly turning off the lights and pretending they were not home. While the details of this incident remain unclear, the marriage appeared to continue without significant disruption. In late July 2006, James, Sheila, and Heather traveled to Athens, Greece. There, after an illness, James passed away in a hotel on Sunday, August the 6th, 2006. He left a trust fund of $1.5 million to his youngest child. From this point on, the relationship between mother and daughter rapidly deteriorated. Initially, one might have dismissed it as typical teenage rebellion, but the situation soon escalated dramatically. Sheila, who had lived a life largely free of scandal, found herself calling the police to her home dozens of times due to domestic disturbances. Local police records show at least 35 interactions with law enforcement since 2008, including allegations that Heather broke her mother's arm, bit her, and physically assaulted her. A missing person report was also filed after Heather once ran away from home. Meanwhile, friends and relatives testified that Sheila never stopped trying to mend the relationship with her daughter, regularly taking her to psychologists and psychiatrists. At the time, Heather was a high school student with a talent for dance. She was also considered academically gifted, owing to her family background and international travel experiences. However, she made no secret of her strained relationship with Sheila, evident in tense phone calls she had with her mother at school. Just as she was entering her senior year, and at the height of her anger toward her mother, Heather met another student named Tommy Schaefer. Born on July 13, 1993 in Chicago, Tommy was the son of Kia Walker and was also known as an aspiring hip-hop artist under the moniker Tommy X. By his own admission, he was experiencing emotional difficulties at the time. Court records show that in 2012, Tommy pleaded guilty to misdemeanor battery after a violent altercation in Chicago in front of the workplace of a man he had assaulted in Lincoln Park. He was close friends with his cousin, Robert Beeps, and he kept Sheila at a distance with casual friendliness, at least for the time being. In 2011, the 2001 lawsuit against the cruise line was finally settled. After legal fees, Sheila was awarded $34,667, and James's estate received $500,000. Despite a will written 5 days before James's death, leaving his entire estate to his daughter, the judge awarded Sheila $500,000. After 2 years of growing conflict in the family, the mother confessed to a confidant that she feared her daughter wanted to get rid of her permanently. She wasn't far from the truth, as Heather had by this point begun to study Sheila, mentally noting her mother's motives, habits, routines, and movements. Moreover, the girl considered herself smarter and more cunning, and her constant desire to have her own way made living together feel like a prison. Yet even their volatile relationship didn't stop the mother and daughter from continuing their tradition of flying to exotic vacation destinations. So in 2013, they traveled from Antarian to the coast of Greece. Things took a turn for the worse in April 2014, when 18-year-old Heather and 21-year-old Tommy began dating. Sheila consented to these relationships. Further inflaming the situation, the couple hosted a party at a hotel, paid for with the woman's credit card. From that moment forward, her disapproval only intensified. Heather openly discussed with her boyfriend the necessity of getting rid of her mother, whom she deemed a cruel woman. She was convinced Sheila was responsible for James's death and believed she'd been intentionally deprived of her inheritance. This became a frequent topic, and soon the young couple began exchanging messages, imagining themselves as a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. They routinely discussed ways to end the 62-year-old woman's life, encouraging each other and fantasizing about the wealth Heather would inherit upon her mother's death. By this point, Sheila was so afraid of her own daughter that she confessed her fears to her closest friends. Nonetheless, they decided to embark on another joint trip in the summer of 2014, this time to Bali, Indonesia. Shortly before the trip, on July 23rd, Sheila reported to the police that her credit cards were being used without her permission at the Conrad Hotel in Chicago. The couple discovered that Heather and her boyfriend had indeed used the card to book a room, racking up about $1,000 in charges. Tommy was arrested for misdemeanor disorderly conduct after becoming uncooperative during the arrest. While in the police car, he posted a video of the incident online, downplaying its significance. He also bragged on social media about his upcoming vacation, adding that he might not return. Unbeknownst to Sheila, her daughter was planning to bring her partner along. Later that month, Tommy was due in court for the hotel incident. In the meantime, he and Heather sought advice from his cousin, Robert. Believing Robert's age and experience would be helpful when committing a crime, they offered him a portion of Sheila's inheritance as payment. Around this time, Heather discovered she was pregnant. The news was reportedly met with joy by both of them. On the day the mother and daughter departed, Tommy sent Heather text messages expressing his eagerness for the fairy tale scenario that awaited them as possessors of a vast fortune. It was August of 2014 when the wealthy woman checked into the five-star St. Regis Hotel in Bali with her troubled daughter. In this tropical paradise of crystal-clear waters, palm trees, and dazzling white sands, the mother and daughter planned to mend their relationship during a 10-day luxurious getaway. At least that's what Sheila thought. However, Heather's plan was already in motion. That same day, Heather replied to her boyfriend that everything was going as planned. She then used her mother's credit card again to purchase a $12,000 business class ticket for Tommy. Once her boyfriend landed on Indonesian soil, the trip took a disastrous turn for Sheila, who also learned about her daughter's pregnancy. Then, on the night of August 11th, 2014, hotel security cameras captured her arguing with Tommy in the lobby. Moments later, out of view of the cameras, Tommy fatally struck Sheila with a metallic object. He then sent Heather a text message informing her of the crime. They then exchanged messages. Later, he and Heather placed Sheila's lifeless body in a suitcase and carried it to the hotel lobby. They hailed a taxi, placed the suitcase in the trunk, and attempted to leave the luxury hotel. Unbeknownst to the couple, Sheila had instructed the hotel staff not to allow her daughter to use her credit card, preventing them from leaving the premises. The couple simply decided to flee the scene. On the way, they had to leave their suitcase with the taxi driver, and they realized they couldn't leave Bali because their passports were in the hotel's safe. They checked into the budget Wisata Bali hotel. Meanwhile, the taxi driver entered the hotel and spoke with employees. When the driver and manager opened the trunk, they saw reddish stains and decided to go to the police station. There, officers searched the heavy gray suitcase and discovered Sheila's body inside. A subsequent medical examination revealed that she had died from blunt force trauma to the face. She also had bruises on her arms and broken fingers. While the police investigated, the staff at Wisata Bali became suspicious of the young couple. When Tommy asked a hotel employee about using the internet, they asked for identification. With this information, the staff alerted the authorities. Police found them asleep, and during questioning, they concocted a story claiming that an armed gang had attacked them at the hotel. As for Sheila, she wasn't so lucky. The officers arrested both of them on suspicion of committing the crime. Heather demanded the presence of an American lawyer. After their arrest and interrogation, they appeared on Indonesian television. Heather was wearing a Chicago Fire Department t-shirt, smiling and smoking a cigarette. Tommy, meanwhile, tried to hide his face from the cameras. The young couple was taken to the infamous Karabokan prison in Bali, known for its overcrowding and crime. From there, their stories changed several times. Tommy and Heather were charged with premeditated murder, facing the death penalty by firing squad, while Sheila's body was repatriated for burial. Although Heather underwent psychiatric evaluations, information about past visits to psychologists and psychiatrists was kept secret. As more details emerged, the case spiraled into a headline-grabbing scandal. The frenzy surrounding Heather intensified when news of her pregnancy broke. On March 17, 2015, she gave birth to a daughter, whom she named Stella. Heather was permitted to keep Stella with her in the overcrowded cell. When the local press inquired about the baby's well-being, Heather revealed that Stella had 6 fingers on her left hand and would require surgery to remove the extra digit. Just days after Stella's birth, her parents appeared in court, donning plastic rings to signify their spiritual marriage. Red for Heather and blue for Tommy. Tearfully, Tommy testified that he had struck Sheila in self-defense, claiming she had attacked him first upon learning of her daughter's pregnancy. He described Heather as driven by a desire to break free from her controlling mother. Tommy was unprepared for what he would hear when Heather took the stand. She pleaded not guilty, insisting she never wanted her mother dead and had simply panicked during the argument, fleeing to the bathroom. However, she admitted to helping Tommy dispose of the body. The prosecution argued that the young couple had planned the murder, alleging that Heather had once suggested Tommy hire a hitman and pay him $40,000 to eliminate her mother. Autopsy photos displayed in court revealed Sheila's body with deep cuts on her face and arms, which the prosecution argued were the result of her desperate attempts to defend herself. A panel of 3 judges found both Tommy and Heather guilty of premeditated murder, but against the prosecution's expectations, opted against the death penalty, recommending a sentence of up to 20 years instead. By then, the weight of reality began to crush Tommy. It seemed that only after the trial did he truly grasp the enormity of what had transpired. Confronting Sheila's family proved to be another devastating blow. He awoke each morning feeling worthless, with distress etched across his face. His teeth began to rot. Dark circles formed under his eyes, and he lost approximately 25 pounds. In April 2015, sentencing arrived. Heather received a 10-year prison sentence, while Tommy was to serve 18 years behind bars. The judge did not mince words, describing the crime as brutal and cold-blooded. However, he also noted that Tommy's politeness and remorse contributed to him not receiving a longer sentence. Tommy, for his part, took full responsibility for his actions. Upon exiting the courthouse, Heather was seen joking with photographers, sipping contraband soda that, according to onlookers, reeked of alcohol. She remarked that she was saddened to be released before her boyfriend. However, the couple soon ended their relationship. According to the law, their young daughter was allowed to remain with her mother in prison until the age of 2. Behind bars, Heather filled her social media with photos of newfound friends, a stark contrast to young Stella's unusual childhood. Tommy, once supportive, now saw Heather as mentally unfit to be a mother. A news channel's Prison Access revealed Heather dancing and carefree, sparking public outrage. Tommy petitioned the U.S. government to intervene, demanding Stella's removal and Heather's mandatory hospitalization. He sought no pity, only hoping Stella wouldn't mirror his own troubled past. With legal options exhausted after 2 years, Heather conceded custody to Astrolake, a former inmate residing in Indonesia. Simultaneously, Heather relinquished all claims to Sheila's estate, making Stella the sole beneficiary. In 2017, Tommy's cousin faced justice, receiving a 9-year sentence for a connection to the initial crime. Heather's story took a dark turn when she confessed in a video to killing her mother. Her lawyers swiftly retracted the statement, blaming Tommy's coercion. In October of 2021, After 7 years, Heather, then 26, walked free due to good behavior. Reunited with 6-year-old Stella, Heather began plotting a fresh start. The following month, she and her daughter were extradited to the United States. Upon arrival in Chicago's International Airport, the FBI arrested her and presented a new indictment: conspiracy to commit murder in a foreign country and obstruction of justice. In statements made to a prominent American media outlet at the time, Heather argued that she had already served her time and therefore it was unreasonable to bring charges in the United States. As for Stella, she was placed under the guardianship of Anesia Fabian, a lawyer who had previously worked on the case, and then again with an Australian citizen, but this time on U.S. soil. A year later, Heather struck a deal with the prosecution, pleading guilty to conspiracy to murder a U.S. national abroad. Under the terms of the agreement, the prosecutors recommended the maximum sentence of 28 years in prison, taking into account the time already served in Indonesia. However, the judge warned that he could ignore the recommendation and make his own decision. Parallel to Heather's trial, the question of custody of her daughter was being decided. In November of 2022, when the Australian woman was forced to leave the United States, Judge Stephanie Miller granted temporary custody of Stella to Heather's maternal cousin, Lisa Hellman. This decision was upheld by the same Judge Stephanie in February of 2023. In January of 2024, the judge sentenced Lois Heather Mack to 26 years behind bars. She was also ordered to pay $262,708 in compensation and a fine of $50,000. It was later revealed that upon learning the truth about her mother, young Stella refused to re-establish any contact with her.